Hello and welcome to the Amateur Austenite. My name is Frances Duncan. I'm an author and the founder of the Jane Austen Society.
And my name is Sian, and I'm her usual accompaniment for these sessions.
And today we're discussing chapter 11 of Mansfield Park. But before we started, after I uploaded our last episode, I discovered it was our 100th one.
Oh, wow. We have to celebrate. We've got to go out and have a cup of coffee, tea, hot chocolate.
So in chapter 11, it's announced that Sir Thomas is coming home. No one's really happy about it. Miss Crawford is interested, but not happy. We don't actually hear from anyone being happy, but I imagined Edmund would be.
Edmund and I think Fanny is.
But it doesn't actually say that, does it?
Well, it doesn't say they're happy, because that's not their character. You know, they're not ebullient. They're not going to go out there and say, oh, it's fabulous news.
Miss Crawford brings up the clergy again. She sees Sir Thomas coming home as Edmund sacrificing himself to the clergy and Maria sacrificing herself to marriage.
Yes, well, as Edmund says, it's rather self-inflicted from Maria's perspective, and also it's his choice from his. There's a lot in Austen about the clergy, all shapes and forms and formats, from Mr. Collins to Dr. Grant and people like that. And there was a lot of satire in the Georgian period, which I'm absolutely sure Austen would have been familiar with, about the types of clergymen.
You brought up that one other time. What was it, the red-faced clergyman or something?
Yes, they had the glutton. So you got Dr. Grant, who's the glutton. You've got the Mr. Collins, who's the one but has all his curates is going to do his work for him.
So you think she might have actually been placing each one of them in one of those roles?
I think there's an element of her potentially being influenced by that, if not necessarily inspired. Whereas Edmund fulfills the true spirit of somebody who's looking out for his flocks and also his own estate. When they get the estate, they're meant to be able to survive on that and actually feed themselves and everything. Edmund is the ideal for all his weaknesses. And there are some others as well. Catherine Morland's father is obviously regarded well.
Henry Tilney? Although he spends an awful lot of time in Bath.
But Henry Tilney is also a very rich young man, or rather the son of a general. And that's not to say that they can't spend time, because they have their own curates to do certain things. It doesn't mean to say he wasn't actually back doing a sermon at the weekend or anything, even though he was spending time at Bath. There was quite a lot of satire, and I picked up some of the things when Mary was talking about the gluttonous clergyman.
We also get the lovely scene of stargazing, and you get the impression that Edmund and Fanny have done this quite often. But then, again, he promises, let's go out onto the lawn and look at the stars. And then he ignores her for Miss Crawford again.
Edmund is starstruck. So maybe that's part of the looking at the stars. Mary's this bright light that he's not come across before. She knows how to charm people, and he's absolutely enamoured. But ultimately, he still tries to think about Fanny, but gets sidetracked. But in terms of his still belief in himself as, I want to be a curate, that there is no pressure on me to do that. Yes, I'm grateful I've got a living to go to. She's just this wonderful, bright, nebula star of light, and he's just dazzled. But then the scales eventually.
And after a very long time, far too long, Edmund, I'm not impressed. So the chapter opens with letters from Antigua. Sir Thomas will be on his way home. Thinking about them is an unwelcome exercise. November is the black month fixed for his return.
I feel so sorry for him.
He was looking forward to being with his beloved family.
And he's honest about that. He does love his family. He's not demonstrative.
Sir Thomas would have been deeply mortified by a suspicion of half that his daughters felt on the subject of his return.
And I think that's absolutely correct.
Maria doesn't want to marry Mr. Rushworth.
She's dug herself a hole and doesn't know how to get out of it.
Julia's not happy about it either, though. They're having so much fun without their father there providing authority. Tom is not doing his job. He either does not care about the rules or is absent.
And he's not really, ironically, been taught responsibility. So you could argue that Sir Thomas has let his son down in that sense.
I don't know. I think he makes it very clear what he expects of Tom.
He does, but he seems to let him get away. But I think it doesn't help with the fact that he's not there.
Miss Crawford brings up that Maria will get married and Edmund will take orders when Sir Thomas returns, and compares it to sacrifices offered to the gods for safe return. And Edmund says, "It is entirely her own doing, and I assure you that his own is quite as voluntary as Maria's marrying."
Well, it was voluntary at the time, but now she's
changed her mind and she can't get out of it.
She's not got the courage to say, "I've made a mistake." She still had the power to back out. It would have been a scandal, but a hell of a lot less scandal
than what she did, yeah. Mary says that she has done no more than what every young woman would do. Here's a rich guy, he wants to marry you. You marry him.
And if she'd been a bit more mature, she would have been able to manage him and still had her cake and eat it. But then again, Mrs. Rushworth was an added disincentive.
Mary points out that she thinks Edmund is probably wanting to be a clergyman because his father is holding a living for him. Fanny compares it to people in the army or navy doing that because their parents have done it as well. So they have people that will help them move forward. Nobody wonders that they should prefer the line where their friends can serve them best. Miss Crawford agrees that the army and navy is great. It has its own justification. It has heroism, danger, bustle, fashion.
Actually, nothing particularly admirable about any of those professions.
They're fancy, though.
But they are exciting. They're fun. There's an awful lot of mud and dirt and time alone and gazing out on sea and swabbing the decks. She will have only seen the higher ranks, and she'll have only seen the higher ranks in the social environments, when they do look wonderful in their uniforms when they go to the dances and things and on parade.
She goes on to insult the clergy. A clergyman has nothing to do but to be slovenly and selfish. His curate does all the work, and the business of his own life is to dine. Okay. She is looking at Dr. Grant. She has a bit to say about Dr. Grant. Edmund tries to dismiss this, though, and say this isn't your opinion. This is other people's opinions that you've heard. He's doing it again. He's giving her an out.
He's given her credit.
To see?
No. If we all think about it, when we're in those throes of love, we do not wish to see the negative aspects of our love interest. We'll deny them. We've all been there, done that. First loves, the initial stages of getting married when you really could ignore the snores and the dirty socks and things. And then after a while, actually...
You want to kill them?
Well, you said you don't mind sleeping in the other room to get a good night's sleep.
She shows herself as...
shallow.
And not terribly intelligent. Again, she says, where an opinion is general, it is usually correct. This is what I've heard, therefore it's right.
She's very shallow, she's not observant, and she's highly influenced. I mean, let's be honest, she'd be following the Kardashians with great enthusiasm and using them as her example for leading life.
She is a very modern character. That's why people enjoy her so much more than Fanny. She's made to be the heroine of a novel.
Yes, but I think she'd be more likely a heroine of a Thomas Hardy novel. She'll come to a sticky end. She won't actually in this, I don't.
No, she doesn't.
Future, and she doesn't in this at all. But I think she's so self-centred. The both of them are so self-centred, really, both the Crawfords. They're not unintelligent, but they seem to totally lack empathy.
I feel that their interactions with Mansfield do have a lasting effect on their lives, though.
But it wasn't enough.
No.
This is the difference between the Crawfords and Darcy. Darcy changed himself and some of his attitudes in response to Elizabeth's refusal and re-questioning, review of his own values and his own opinions. And he did it when she wasn't there. He didn't say anything about what he was doing for her sister. Whereas we got later on Henry talking about the things he can do for her brother. There's spoilers here. I have to not say.
Spoilers.
We shouldn't be saying. But let's be honest. They do come across. They are exciting. They're the ones that brighten up the room. They're great fun in the party. Would you want to live with them? You probably think you would until you actually had to. And then could you rely on them?
They're kind of situational friends.
But we've got some people, I love going out with them, but actually they're often really good in small doses because you can't actually really truly have a conversation with them.
You can't rely on them. And if you're no longer right in front of their face.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, they will drop you. They both go on to say lovely things to Fanny, though. Edmund says, I think the man who could often quarrel with Fanny must be beyond the reach of my any sermons.
For all the weaknesses of the Crawford, they are not inherently malicious.
You said that about the Bertrams too.
They're totally thoughtless. These are self-centred. But they've got more worldliness, the Crawfords. The Bertrams have, the young girls, they've got no worldliness whatsoever, really.
Miss Crawford responds to Edmund saying, I fancy Miss Price has been more used to deserve praise than to hear it. She sees things so clearly. Some things so clearly. Because she sees what Miss Norris is about.
Yes.
She sees what's going on between Mariah and Henry. And she sees that Fanny is ignored, but has value. She even manages to see the value in Edmund.
They have potential, and I think that's what's so disappointing.
You want them to be good.
Yeah.
Because they're so much fun.
Well, they are fun. There's certainly no Bingleys. There's certainly no Carolyn and Louisa. They're not like that at all.
Fanny gets embarrassed and turns into the window. Miss Crawford gets called off to sing a glee and trots off, leaving Edmund and Fanny alone. And they talk about the stars and how beautiful it is. And Fanny is really a lover of nature. But then Edmund's like, well, we can go out on the lawn, but first I want to hear them sing. And then he gets drawn in, like he slowly walks across the room as they're singing and is around the piano by the time they finish and wants to hear it again and has completely forgotten Fanny, standing by herself.
It's just so true what happens, isn't it? As far as he's concerned at the moment, Fanny's his little sister.
She hasn't long been a woman.
No.
18 doesn't feel like a woman to me.
Well, she seems like a young 18, I think, to Edmund, because she still lacks that confidence in herself.
And that is our summary of Chapter 11 of Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. My name is Frances Duncan. You can find me at francesduncanwrites.com and on Twitter at frances_Duncan. Thank you for listening, and we wish you happy reading.